The 365 Days movie series, based on the books by Blanka Lipińska, sparked a lot of interest and led to 2 sequels, leaving fans wondering if 365 Days 4 is on the way. The first movie dropped in 2020, followed by 365 Days This Day in April 2022, and the next 365 Days just a few months later in August 2022. The films focused on Laura Biel, played by Anna Maria Sieklucka, and her intense romance with Sicilian mafioso Massimo. Despite mixed reviews and controversy over the film's themes, the series was a huge hit on Netflix, even topping the charts for several days. Given the popularity of the trilogy, 365 Days 4 might not be far behind. It's still unclear who will be back for 365 Days 4, but the ending of the next 365 days gives us some clues. It's pretty likely that Anna Maria Sieklucka and Michele Morrone will return as the film wraps up with them. Other characters who could make a comeback include Simone Sestina as Nacho and Magdalena Lamparska as Olga. Although no official details about the plot of 365 Days 4 have been revealed yet, author Blanka Lipińska has shared her thoughts on where the story could go. She suggested that exploring the same events from Massimo's perspective could be an interesting idea via Today. This could serve as a prequel or a fresh take on the trilogy, but it would need to happen soon before the actors age out of their roles. The last scene of the next 365 days shows Laura and Massimo meeting on a beach where they acknowledge the pain they've caused each other. Massimo tells Laura he'll accept whatever decision she makes, even if it's choosing Nacho over him. But the movie ends before she makes that choice, leaving 365 Days 4 to possibly pick up right there. It could see Laura choosing one of the men or neither, leading both Massimo and Nacho to fight for her love. Since the next 365 Days wrapped up Netflix's controversial 365 Days trilogy, its ending has been analyzed more than any of the previous films. While the 365 Days movies are packed with clichés, they're far from predictable. In fact, the most surprising thing about the next 365 Days is how much more grounded it feels compared to its over-the-top predecessors. The film dials back on the dramatic, soap opera-style plotlines of the earlier movies. Instead of the usual gunfights, kidnappings, or violent showdowns between the 2 love interests, the movie focuses on the love triangle between Nacho, Laura, and Massimo. In a surprising twist, both Massimo and Nacho choose to respect Laura's wishes and give her the space to make her own decision about her love life. Unlike the other films, Laura's life isn't at risk in the next 365 days, which is a first for the trilogy. Instead, she seems to choose one of the 2 men. Throughout the movie, Massimo and Laura grow distant after the traumatic events of 365 Days This Day, especially after Laura reveals that she lost her pregnancy in a car crash. Massimo is hurt that she didn't tell him sooner, and this creates tension between them. Eventually, Laura sleeps with Nacho while on a business trip in Portugal. Massimo, however, respects her need for space and gives her the time to figure out what's best for her. While critics have slammed the 365 Days films for romanticizing toxic and abusive dynamics, the next 365 Days brings a shift. Massimo, who once held Laura captive for a year to make her fall in love with him, sits calmly on a beach and declares that he only wants to be with her if that's truly what she wants. While the next 365 Days leaves the ending open to interpretation, it seems to hint that Laura and Massimo might stay together, but this is actually a pretty big departure from the original novel. In the book, Laura leaves Massimo to be with Nacho, and Massimo's response is to send Laura the dead body of her pet dog. In a shocking turn inspired by Wuthering Heights, Massimo accuses Nacho of killing the dog, gets Laura back, and locks her in his mansion again. But when Laura finds out Massimo was the one who killed the dog, she seduces him, escapes, and runs off with Nacho. In an unexpected twist, Massimo then agrees to a divorce, and Laura and Nacho live happily ever after, with a crazy mob boss accepting that Laura is gone for good. The Netflix movie ending doesn't clarify if Laura and Massimo will stay together, but it does seem to suggest that they won't break up again. Unlike the previous 365 Days films, which ended with a fake-out death for Laura, the ending of the next 365 Days sees Massimo directly ask Laura who she wants to be with, him or Nacho. While they don't fully reconcile, Massimo leaves the film with a sweet story his late father told him about love. If you love something, you have to let it go to see if it comes back, and that's how you know if it's meant to be. In the end, Massimo seems to take this lesson to heart, accepting that Laura may choose Nacho, but leaving the door open for her to return. The ending of the next 365 Days marks a big shift in how the trilogy addresses consent. While the first two films were heavily criticized for glamorizing toxic relationships, with some defending them as exaggerated, campy fantasies, the final movie takes a more mature approach. It sheds the over-the-top plot of the source novel in favor of a more grounded conclusion. The film finally gives Laura some control over her choices, shows that Massimo understands consent, and portrays both men in her life as characters who care about her well-being rather than their own desires. This change feels surprising given the tone of the earlier films, but also addresses many of the common critiques of the franchise. Where the original 365 Days was seen as a celebration of problematic dynamics, the next 365 Days tries to bring in more responsible ideas of consent and agency. While the ending doesn't confirm whether Laura ends up with Massimo or Nacho, it emphasizes that her decision will be mutual, something fans and critics find both surprising and refreshing. However, despite the more mature approach, critics weren't impressed. Jessica Kiang of Variety called the entire trilogy bone-tired. Even though critics panned the films, they remain hugely popular on Netflix, partly thanks to the YouTube reactions. Channels like Heavy Spoilers dubbed the trilogy the worst trilogy of all time, though they also predicted a fourth movie might happen due to the unresolved ending. This prediction suggests that the final chapters of the books could be used to create more drama between Massimo and Nacho. Pop culture podcasters like Daniel Barnes from the Dare Daniel podcast echoed similar sentiments, calling the third movie utterly lacking in news story developments. Many fans also voiced frustration with the ambiguous ending, wondering why a trilogy closer would leave things so unresolved. Some fans pointed out that after Massimo's abusive actions, Laura's choice shouldn't be this hard. It seems like Netflix may have stretched the story a bit too far, leaving some fans disappointed by the ambiguous ending. This might be the breaking point for some who have followed the trilogy since the beginning. In the end, while the next 365 Days tried to steer the series in a more thoughtful direction, it ultimately left many fans and critics disappointed, as it failed to reconcile its previous successes with its newfound attempt at maturity. The franchise's future, should it continue, would likely hinge on whether it can find a balance between drama, absurdity, and more meaningful storytelling. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below.